What's happening, everyone? It's Second Chance Podcast with Jeff Robinson with a brand new episode. Excited, like I always am. Enthused. Liam Maiden is going to be up next on our Second Chance Podcast. Liam was phoning in from his yacht in Italy, and so the video is hoping it's going to clean up well. There's a little pause sometimes, but just know that some of the technical difficulties is the internet connection from where he's at. But amazing conversation, more brain work, more of that stuff that is really, really out there, just really helps us reframe our thoughts and reframe our brain into our mindset and just a different way of thinking. And a few years ago, I kind of sat down and just said, listen, we'll stop chasing it and I'm going to start seeing what life sends me. And it has absolutely paid off dividends. So you're going to hear that in Liam's podcast and him talking about his strategies and things that he does to help his clients. So let me know what you think. Thank you for liking, sharing, commenting. Any feedback? My audio sometimes is bad. I've had some working on some different mics and testing some different things. So don't listen. Be nice about it. You got to hurt my feelings. But if there's something that I need to be doing, you're like, this guy drives me nuts because he's not doing this or he overdoes this. Be like my wife and just shoot me a message. And you can find me on Instagram. You can email me. If you look in the show notes, you'll find my website contact. So I love hearing from everyone. Thank you for the folks that reached out and letting me know that some of these episodes have absolutely spoken to them. Thank you. And let me know what you think. Welcome back to another episode of the Second Chance Podcast. Today, we're diving deep into the brain, but not the way you might think. My guest today, Liam Maiden, is a speaker, teacher, writer, and researcher who went from millionaire to homeless and back again, discovering that the way we use our brain is a real key to success or failure. Liam is a creator of the 4-part brain model in brain rebalancing, and he hosts the Let Yourself Off the Hook podcast. His message? Success is natural and problems are not. If you know how to use your brain the right way, we're going to unpack that. Talk about how he turned his life around and explore the cutting edge ideas he's working on, including this upcoming book, Let Yourself Off the Hook. So if you've ever felt stuck, overwhelmed, or like success is out of reach, this episode's for you. Let's get into it with Liam Nate. Liam, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Man, you've been on both sides of the financial spectrum, from millionaire to homeless. What was the moment you realized the way you were using your brain was the key to turning things around?
Well, actually, it was part of the whole experience, because if anyone's been homeless, you'll know it's not just about losing your stuff. It's about losing your identity, really, and the meaning you give to life. And it all really happened when, I'd become a successful multimillionaire. And on this particular day, I can recall actually where I was just putting the finishing touches on my dream home. It had always been my dream to have a magnificent home exactly the way I wanted it. And it was just being finished off. And on this particular day, I went into the music room, which I'd built as part of the home, which was one of my dreams as well. And I remember sitting down and thinking, this is amazing. I've reached all my goals. I am super successful. I've made it. Everything I've dreamt about, pretty much, I've achieved. I've got this amazing home. I've got a couple of businesses that are giving me income. I've got all this freedom. I've got all this. I'm doing anything I want to do. But, instead of feeling grateful, instead of feeling really happy and excited and like, wow, this is amazing, I felt absolutely terrible, completely and utterly miserable. And I remember thinking, why is this? And it was because I still had a ton of problems in my life. I still had a lot of things that were going wrong. I still had all of these challenges and, things that, like, my marriage wasn't going too well, but even in my businesses, they weren't going going great either, even though on the outside I was really successful. And I remember saying to myself, if I'm really honest, I'd rather lose everything I have. I'd rather throw all of this away than lose my soul, because that's what it really felt like. It felt like my life force energy, if you like, was being drained out of me by stress and problems, even though I had so much I could have been grateful for. Well, as they say, you have to be careful what you wish for, because literally within weeks, that is what happened. I lost everything. The home, the beautiful home and the music room, the marriage, my businesses, it all just went. And I ended up having to move in with my elderly mother and sleep on the sofa in the living room in her small apartment, which was as you could imagine, a huge change. And it wasn't just, as I said earlier, losing everything. It was like this, I felt so low. This was the real bottom of my life, if you like, because I didn't know what on earth was going on. And in fact, two questions kept coming up to me all the time as I was lying on the sofa trying to get comfortable, which wasn't easy. And those questions were, number one, why has this happened to me? And I think often we have events in our life, setbacks, big setbacks, and they're really confusing. We don't know why they've happened, because I thought I was a good person. I hadn't done anything dishonest. This wasn't, wasn't some crazy guy had a shady business and, been caught up with or anything like that. I'd worked really hard for years, for decades, literally, because I was in my mid-40s when all this happened. So I'd worked really hard, and I thought I was honest. And I hadn't just worked hard, I'd studied success. So I'd been to lots of seminars and workshops and done courses and read books on everything from, goal setting and motivation and how to create plans and how to visualize and how to, reprogram your subconscious mind, if you like, and spirituality and religion and all these things. I'd studied all of these things. So I was an expert on what it took to be successful. If someone had said to me, Liam, give a speech on success, I could stand up there and I could quote all the gurus and, say all the right things about having your goals and all these things. But I thought, all of this information hasn't helped me. This wasn't on my goals list to lose everything, but why has it happened? If I'm such an expert, if I know how to create success in life, how come I've ended up in this situation? So that was the first question. Why has this happened to me? And the second question was, what do I do now? And because I had no clue on what to do, I didn't know anybody, I had no money, I had less than no money. I was in a strange town that I hadn't been to for a long time. I didn't have any businesses or any prospects. So I thought, what do I do now? And as I lay on the sofa night after night, these were the two questions that kept coming up in my mind. Why has this happened to me? And what do I do now? And the turning point, you mentioned earlier in answer to your question, what was the turning point? The turning point was when I did something that I don't think I would have done in any other situation. If I hadn't reached rock bottom, I would never have done this. I would never reach this turning point. And the turning point was to give the answer to both those questions. Why has this happened to me and what do I do now? And the answer was the same, which is, I don't know. I don't know why this has happened to me. I don't know what to do now, and I just give up. I've had it. I've got nothing more to give. I've got no more energy. I'm not going to go out looking for opportunities. I'm not going to go and try and find out how to fix my life. I just give up. And what I didn't realize then is that was a turning point, and not because of any spiritual or sort of, coincidental thing we might think of, but down to pure science, the science of how your brain works. What I didn't realize is that I'd shifted the way I was using my brain, and everything changed after that. And what actually happened was a new relationship came into my life, one that was far better than anything I'd had before, far more enriching and fulfilling. And then a business showed up in my life. And then another business showed up in my life. And before I knew it, I was doing amazing things. I was making really good money again. And it was giving me the freedom to travel and do things that I wanted. It wasn't long before I bought a new yacht in Europe and sailed around Europe for 8 years, visiting 15 different countries while managing my businesses. So all these things were happening. And I say they showed up for a very specific reason, because they literally did just show up. And I remember an experience in the Greek islands. And, can you imagine this scene? You're on your own yacht and you're in a bay, beautiful bay in the Greek islands, anchored overnight, and you wake up in the morning, beautiful day, no one around, blue sky, and you just fall off the back of the boat, have a wonderful swim, and you get out and you're drying yourself, and you realize that you've got two businesses that are working for you, making you money without you having to be too involved in them from the other side of the world, and you don't have any problems or stress. Things were working really well. And I remember standing there and thinking, this is what I've been looking for. This is what I've wanted all of those years. It wasn't standing in the music room feeling stressed, having all of these millions, but feeling totally miserable. It was standing on a yacht, having millions, feeling great. And the difference was not what I had on the outside, but I had more than I'd had before on the outside, but it was about not having stress and problems. And it was about feeling, yes, this is my purpose. This is what I'm here for. Life really is great. I don't have problems and stress to deal with. So then I had another problem, which was I needed to figure out what I was doing differently, because I was really confused. Because before, what I'd been doing, I said to myself, I remember this, and I said, how come before I used to work so hard, really go after my goals? I'd always have lots of goals because I'd done lots of goal setting workshops and read lots of books, and I had all of my plans and strategies and knew where I was going, and I visualized, and I took lots of action, and I was always trying to get more information, trying to look, what's the next thing I need to do, working super hard all the time. How come when I was like that, I ended up with a ton of stress, good things on the outside, but a ton of stress, and everything fell apart and I lost it all. Whereas now, everything's going perfectly, and I'm not setting any goals, and I'm not looking for any opportunities. I'm not going out there seeking anything. It all seems like it's coming to me. And a lot of it was like, maybe you call it, well, in one sense you might call it luck. I know now it's not. It's the way the brain works. But if we're not aware of it, we might call it luck or coincidence or synchronicity. But I thought all of these things are happening. I need to figure out what's going on because I don't want this to stop. And that's when I realized, or I started to realize, there's a whole different side to how we get the results we do in our life that everybody's missed. And it comes down to nature and natural biology. And that's what really took me down the rabbit hole to research all of this about how we create the results we want in our life, how it's all to do with how our brain works. And of course, that's what I'm doing now. That's why we're here.
Yeah. Did you mentioned that relationship that came in? Did that relationship that came into your life that helped you do this discovery, or was there an aha moment where you're like, "Oh, this is what I've been missing," or what does that look like?
Yeah, well, it's certainly a significant part of it, and I do a lot of marriage and relationship coaching. Still, it's a big part of my business, particularly helping people who are in real, crisis with their marriage, and so. I did develop, fortunately, through a good relationship that I have as well, this realization that how critically important a great relationship is to your overall success. Because of course, as I often say, you can have everything in the world, but if you have an unhappy relationship, you're going to be unhappy. But you can have nothing in the world, but if you've got a great relationship, you'll be happy.
You're absolutely right. Can you explain your 4-part brain model and how it impacts someone's ability to succeed or fail in life?
Sure. Well, my 4-part brain model is really an explanation of how your brain works. And I know, and people, when I start to say this, they say, oh, you're talking about the subconscious mind versus the conscious mind, or you're talking about your thoughts or your beliefs, or how your brain is just there to, keep everything moving in your body. It's actually nothing like that. And the important distinction between what I do and what most other people who talk about success talk about, or are their focus, what my focus is to understand the most important thing in life. Because if you were to ask any scientist, how does life work? We're busy going on trying to reach goals and trying to overcome problems and trying to get to somewhere else to where we actually are, and we're trying to have a great life, and that's what we're here for. But if you were to ask any biological scientist or anyone in that sort of field, what is the purpose of life? What do all living things, what are they designed to do? And we need to ask this question because we're part of nature. We're biological. And we are governed by the laws of nature as well, overwhelmingly. But if you were to ask any biological scientist, they'll say there's one purpose of all living things that overrides everything else, and that is that we are all built, every living thing is built to survive. Now that might sound obvious, but what does survival mean? Well, what gives you the greatest chance for survival? What gives any living thing the greatest chance for survival? It's that organism, that thing, that living thing, being its best. When an organism is at its best, when it's thriving, it gives itself the greatest chance for survival. So on a biological level, our purpose is to thrive, every living thing is to be the best that it can be so that it has the greatest chance for survival. And this is so important to realize. I've never really thought about how nature rules everything, but if people doubt it, if they think they can actually overcome the laws of nature, imagine standing on a 10-story building and saying to yourself, when I step off here, I'm going to go up into the air. Now you can pray, you can meditate, you can create every thought process or technique, you can try everything you like, you can write it down as a goal, you can work on changing your beliefs until you're absolutely convinced that you're going to go up in the air. But of course, when you step off, you're going to go straight down. Because the law of gravity, which is one of the laws of nature, it doesn't care about what you think or what you think you can do. It's going to override everything. And there's actually laws about how nature is designed to thrive, how nature is designed to work. And we need to go along with those. And the problem is most people are trying to fight against these natural laws because they not only don't understand them, they don't even know they exist. They don't know there are laws about success. But every biological scientist tells you that there are. Everything is wired for success. Everything is designed physically to be the best that it can be, so that it has the greatest chance for survival. And for humans, being the best that we can be is not just being as good as we can physically with whatever we've got in our body. It's also being mentally and emotionally the best. In other words, it's being happy. It's being fulfilled. It's living our dreams. It's not having stress and problems. Stress and problems don't help you live longer and make you thrive. They pull you down. As we know, they damage you. So we're biologically designed to thrive, to be the best that we can be without problems in our life. And we have a machine, a mechanism, like all of nature, because nature didn't say, well, that's what you're supposed to do, but good luck, off you go. No, nature provided every living thing with a mechanism or a machine to ensure that happens. Not just to try and make it happen, but to make sure it happens. This is science. This is biology. It's the biological purpose. And of course, if people haven't guessed by now, that's what a brain is. A brain is simply a machine designed for one purpose, to make you the best that you can be so that you have the greatest chance for survival. So the obvious question was, or is, okay, so why do I have problems in my life? Because if you ask most people, do you feel that you're the best that you can be, that you're thriving, that you don't have any problems in your life? They would scoff and say, well, no, my life's nothing like that. But if our biological purpose is to be in this state of thriving, then why aren't we? Well, it's for only one reason. And that reason is this machine, because if you think about any machine, it works perfectly if you use it the right way. If you don't use the machine the right way, you're going to end up with problems show up. Imagine a motor car. A motor car's a machine, nothing more. It's got one very specific purpose and it does it perfectly. It'll do it every time, which is to get you from where you are to where you want to go. And you don't have to think about it, worry about it, analyze it. You can just enjoy the ride. However, if you don't know how to drive a motor car and you get in it and you're like, what's all this here and what do I do with this? And you're hitting the wrong buttons and pressing the wrong levers, and you're not going to get anywhere, or you're not going to get very far, and you're probably going to eventually burn out the engine, damage it. It's going to be a struggle. And you're going to go, this is all confusing. Why is this so unenjoyable? So it's exactly the same with the brain. And my 4-part brain model is a way of explaining on a biological level, there are 4 different regions in your brain, physical regions. I'm not talking about, as I said, some idea like the subconscious. These are 4 physical regions. They all have a different function. And when you know how to use those regions in the right way, that's the way your life ends up. And that's what had happened to me without me realizing it. But when I back engineered what I was doing differently, I realized I was using these without even knowing how it happened. I was using these 4 regions of my brain in a very different and the right way. And that was what was creating the results in my life. And I've seen this many times with others as well. When they get this idea and they start saying, well, this is so obvious and logical that I'm here, it's my biological purpose is to be the best that I can be. And if I'm not, it's just I'm using the machine the wrong way. And the way you explain how the machine works, I'll just do that. And you suddenly start seeing completely different results. So it's all based on biology, based on science. This is as scientific as the law of gravity. And that's what my 4-part model explains.
It's like a key, right? You have that, you found the key to unlock what were folks struggle. How does brain rebalancing work? And how can someone start using it to improve their life today?
Well, what we need to realize is that struggle isn't natural. You know, one of the other, there are 2 other important laws of nature that contribute to success, if you like. I already mentioned one of the 3 laws that I focus on, which is the law of thriving, that everything is biologically designed to thrive, to be the best that it can be, so that it has the greatest chance for survival. And there are 2 other laws that are really important to realize in relation to how to use your brain the right way. And one of them is the law of conservation of energy. So every living biological organism is designed to use the minimum amount of energy to get the maximum amount of result. And this has happened over hundreds of millions of years, and it makes total sense that nature would work in a totally efficient way. And if you think about us as humans, conserving energy, is vital to survival. It certainly has been through most of our history. We might have been unable to find food for a week, but after a week, you still had to have the energy, not only to be alive, but to catch food when it showed up, when you had the opportunity. So we're all designed, everything is designed to conserve energy. In other words, not to struggle, not to put in enormous effort for very little result, but to get the maximum result with the minimum amount of energy that's expended. And the other law that's really important to understand, or at least be aware of, is what I call the law of least resistance. And this is an obvious one. In nature, the less resistance, the faster something goes. It's like trying to ride into the wind on a bicycle. It's a lot tougher than if you just go with the wind. You watch some water down a stream or a river. It just flows in the path of least resistance. So these are really important laws to realize when it comes to understand how to use your brain and what my processes of brain rebalancing are all about. Because they're all about taking the path of least resistance. And they're all about understanding that if you struggle, if you try and force things to happen, if you try and figure stuff out and really, put all this mental energy in, what you're actually doing is you're activating the wrong part of your brain. We mentioned the 4 parts of the brain. The 2 most important parts to be aware of are what create 2 different brain states. Now, remember we said about thriving. So what does thriving really look like? When you're thriving, what are you doing? How are you experiencing life? And in fact, there have been many people throughout history, even today, who've described a state of what thriving feels like. And it's been called things like being in the flow, being in the zone. You hear about athletes they just talk about, I don't know, something took over and suddenly it's not as much effort, but I'm getting a much superior performance. It's like something else is helping me. Or artists and musicians and composers, they talk about, they just don't know where the ideas came from, where the inspiration, we call it, for that music or for that piece of art, or whatever it is. They don't know where it came from. And we also say ourselves, when we're in the state of flow or in the zone, or when we're feeling really good, we're going, I get so many new ideas. I feel so creative. I can see the solution to that problem. there's an aha moment, something I'd never thought of before. Or we have these, what we call our gut feeling. This feels right. This really feels right. Or no, that doesn't feel right, so I'm not going to do it. So we've all experienced this from time to time. And what this experience is the activation of a part of your brain, which is right in the very center of your skull. It's centered around the pineal gland, the basal forebrain, and several other structures as well. So this is a physical thing. And when you activate this part, you become in the flow, in the zone. In other words, you become the best that you can be. You thrive. And as I said, you're creative and you're feeling great about life. It's what I call our natural creative state, because biologically, this is the way we're supposed to live all of the time. Because when we live in this state, we are being the best that we can be, and we're making the right decisions. We're seeing the right things to do and the wrong things to avoid. We're being creative. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're feeling really motivated, inspired, and grateful and loving and all of those things. That's our natural biological state. That's the state we're supposed to exist in all of the time, because that makes us thrive. But there's another part of our brain that's the spanner in the works and stops us, because people will say, well, that sounds great, but why aren't I in that state all of the time? I'd like to be. Sounds wonderful. But why aren't I? It's because there's another part of your brain that sort of works in opposition to that. Because there's another part of your brain which has a different function, and that is to protect you on the very, very rare occasion, and these days it is very rare, that you might have a physical threat to your survival show up in your life. Now, obviously, millions of years ago when the human brain was developed, there were a lot more physical threats. There was a lion behind every rock. There was a snake in all the grass, So we had to develop a mechanism to protect us when we needed to be protected from threats and dangers. And we've sometimes called this the fight-flight mechanism. That's part of it. But what we don't realize is the fight-flight mechanism, which is a reaction to a threat or a danger. Someone comes running at you and is about to hit you, you're going to react without even thinking about it. It's a protection mechanism. So, but this particular part of the brain, what actually happens, the way you're supposed to live is you're supposed to live in this thriving state. But if occasionally a lion comes along and wants to eat you, then you snap out of that state and you activate what I call your survival state. And this is what activates this fight-flight response. Now, the thing about this fight-flight response is that it's very good for dealing with having you react to a lion about to eat you, or dealing with a threat to your survival. But it's absolutely useless in terms of managing the bigger problems and the bigger issues in your life, because all it knows how to do is 4 things: run away, fight, freeze and do nothing. That's the fight, flight, freeze. Also shout out for help. So when you've activated this part of your brain, they're the only 4 things you can do. And what are most people doing? They're trying to manage their life using this part of their brain, and they can only do those 4 things. They don't have access to their creativity, their awareness, their imagination, their inspiration. All of that gets shut down when this part of the brain is activated. So we sit there and we go, I'm so unhappy, I'm so stressed. How do I fix my problems? What do I need to do with my life? What do I need to learn? I'm so confused. I can't think straight. I'm so stressed. And what we don't realize, all of that is a sign that this is what happens when you're using this particular part of your brain, your survival brain. So the real trick to success and to managing your life is to learn, and this is what I teach, how to shift your predominant experience from being in this stressed, confused, don't know what to do, trying to figure it out state, to your natural creative state. The part of your brain that will automatically bring you the right ideas. It will show you what to do. And not only that, won't just show you what to do, you'll find yourself actually doing these things. You talk about motivation, it'll be natural. You'll be in this flow. So all you need to do is understand what is triggering this survival part of your brain, which is blocking your creative part of your brain. Does that make sense?
Yes. I feel like I've lived in that fight or flight space, and I've had these realization moment of these opportunities as well. And you're helping me got my brain working to where I'm like, because I did law enforcement, we did public safety, and everything you always you approach, and then that carries over into everyday life, and then you have your childhood, all these experiences that teach you to live within that fear realm of what you're talking about, Liam. And I've also had the experience of these enlightening moments of like, holy crap, well, this is so awesome. Why, and
Yeah.
so I think just in my own, just I'm going to insert myself, but uh, through my own journey, I think I've experienced both sides of this in a
Well,
small form. But I also know that through coaching and working with other folks in business and things that I do in just business empowerment and personal empowerment is there is a lot of folks that I hope turn the volume up. And if you didn't, rewind about go 10 minutes back and re-listen to everything that Liam said, because there's a lot of people living where you exactly described. Wow.
and the funny
Um,
thing is, we all have experienced both these states, but we experience our natural state very, very rarely. But what we need to do is to know how can we activate, not only activate this state whenever we want, but make sure we live in this state. And the only time we ever feel stress, anxiety, and worry is when we're faced with an immediate threat to our survival. That is the only purpose of feeling stress, fear, and anxiety. Because here's what activates these two brain states. And this is all done deep within your brain. And there are triggers, both external and internal triggers that activate this survival state. What activates it, or how you know that it's being activated, is when you feel fear. Fear, stress, worry, anxiety, frustration, anger. These are all messages from your brain to say you are faced with a threat to your survival. So someone tells you, you're not making as much money, or you don't think you're making as much money as you should be, or you're in the wrong job, or you're not happy in your relationship. What's happening on a biological level and a psychological level, subconsciously, is your brain is telling you whatever it is you're worried about, it thinks is a threat to your survival. And you've probably picked up this idea in your childhood, that you saw, maybe you read on a film, or you saw on the films that, the only way to be safe is to have this really wonderful marriage, and if somebody comes along and they have a divorce is disaster. And it means that, all these terrible things are going to happen to you and your family. So your brain sees it as a danger. It sees that you're going to end up in a really bad place if you get a divorce. So it activates. That's why we feel all the stress. It's our brain telling us something that's simply not true. But we've trained it to think it's true through all our experience, from everything we've been told and learnt throughout our entire life. But here's the thing, though. If we know what the triggers are, we can stop our brain from activating the survival state, from activating the fear. And something really interesting, when I started to research how the brain works and how emotions create these particular brain states, and emotions are triggered by other things that are often subconscious and things we're not even aware of, I thought this is really interesting, because what it's saying is that fear is the enemy. When you feel fear, you're activating the wrong part of your brain. And because, as I say, what happens here, you're not just activating that part of your brain, which is bound to get you doing the wrong things. That's why you shout at somebody when you're in an argument and you say, why did I do that? You didn't want to shout at them, but your brain made you do it, because it gets you to do the wrong things. It gets you in this reactive state. So I thought, why is it, where have I heard this before, that fear is the enemy? Fear is what activates the wrong part of your brain and shuts down the resources that you need to have the best for you to thrive. I thought, this is taught through spiritual and religious traditions throughout history. The Bible happens to be one of the best manuals on how to use your brain that exists, because it says it says 365 times in the Bible, be not afraid. Now that's not an idea, that's an instruction. It's saying to you, you must not be afraid unless a lion's about to eat you. But you must not be afraid, because when you are afraid, you activate the wrong part of your brain and you shut down the resourceful part of your brain. So your only job is to make sure not to be afraid. And that's why the Bible emphasizes so much about faith, believe, trust. It's all going to work out. It says, do not worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Do not worry about what you shall eat, drink, or wear. It's all going to be provided for you. It doesn't say you have to work hard for it. It says it's going to be provided for you, just like it is in the rest of nature. And the rest of nature is not struggling to find food or shelter. It just does. So this is an instruction to say your job is to stop the triggers that are activating the wrong part of your brain. And if you have a religious or spiritual perspective, you could say that allows the creative part of your brain, which is your connection, not just to your own thoughts and your own ideas, it's to infinite intelligence, to God, if you like. This is the part that works through you. This is how God and inspiration and intelligence work through you, is through this part of your brain. It's been called in spiritual traditions things like the kingdom of heaven, the holy of holies. These are all references to the creative brain, which is a physical place in your head. It's not just an idea. So the whole emphasis in spirituality and religion is like science is realizing you've got to focus on activating this part of your brain and letting everything happen. Let your brain do the work. Because remember, your brain is a 500 trillion microprocessor computer. It's far and away vastly more powerful than all the computers on Earth. And it's got one task, one job. It's only there to do one thing: make you thrive, make you the best that you can be. But it can only do that if you're using the part that's designed to do that. And as I say, when you do that, that's when the magic happens. That's when people show up in your life and you think, oh, wow, where did they come from? Or where did that idea come from? Or, but you have to, this doesn't operate on fear. If you're worried about what's going to happen, you're not having faith, are you? You're not allowing this part of the brain to do its job. So it's simple, not necessarily easy. And this is what I teach people to do, you've got to unlearn everything we've been taught about life and who we are. And, life's a struggle and you have to work hard and your problems are good. We've heard all that. This doesn't make any biological sense, all of these things. But we've been taught all of them, and we've been taught to make life a struggle when we're not designed to struggle biologically.
So speak to, if you can, the business owner that is struggling to make payroll, wakes up, their revenues are down, there's a lot of negativity inside the business. And every day there's when they pull up that app and or their sync their QuickBooks or whatever that's looking like, and they see there's not that volume, there's not that impact, and they're like, man, this is tough being a business owner. Is that what advice would you give them or to them, or if it's possible, to where you could say, hey, this is what you could do that would change that setting today?
Well, it's all about understanding that you have this incredible machine that wants the best for you. And unlike what you think, it knows what's best for you. It knows how to get it for you. And here you are when you're all stressed and thinking, I need to fix this business. I need to solve all of these problems for me to be happy. That's not probably the case at all, because the part of your brain that you're using is that stress-based reactionary state that doesn't know what's best for you. And an example to really answer the question, when I was lying on the sofa in my mother's apartment with nothing, wondering what was going to go on, we all have this idea about setting goals and trying to figure out what we want and visualizing. And what causes us stress in our life is having a picture of our life about the way it should be that's different to what it is. So if we're struggling in our business, we're saying, for me to be happy, I need to fix this business. I need to get my revenues up. I need to keep my employees happy. I have all of these things that need to be fixed. And when they're all fixed, then I'm going to feel really good. Then I'm going to feel happy. But here's the thing. You don't know whether that is going to make you happy. And when I was lying on my mother's sofa, now if I'd figured out, we have this thing about goals. If I'd figured out, right, what do I need to be really happy? And I'd found some way of my brain telling me what my goals should be, if you like. And my brain had said, or I'd come up with a process and it said, Liam, what's going to make you thrive, what's going to make you the best that you can be, is you're going to meet somebody amazing and you're going to set up some online businesses and you're going to travel the world in your own yacht. You're going to go sailing around the world. And while you're doing that, you're going to be presented with all of this new information about what what success really is, about how it's biological, and how the brain is the key to understanding how to make success happen naturally. And you're going to help all sorts of frustrated entrepreneurs and business people and other people who've got all these problems in their life to see things quite differently and to make some real impact on people. You're going to be a teacher of these things, and you're going to show up with people like, you're going to meet this guy, Jeff Robertson, and you're going to be on his podcast, and you're going to share all this information. Now, if I came up with that lying on my mother's sofa in my stressful state, what would I have said? I would have said, this is insane, for two reasons. One is, there's no way I thought I could achieve that. I would have thought, how do I do that? How do I sail? I've got nothing. How can I end up sailing around the world on a yacht and sailing and teaching? I don't want to be a teacher. So I wouldn't have known that I wouldn't have known how to achieve it. But the most important thing I wouldn't have known is I wouldn't have known that's what I actually wanted. So here's the thing. You don't know what you want. Everything that you've got in your life that's a struggle is a sign that you're doing something wrong. But you don't know that the best thing that might be for you is what happened to me. Best thing that happened to me. Lose everything. Start again. And instead of relying on stress and pushing and struggling, just say, I'm just going to see what shows up and I'm going to act on it. And allow that part of my brain to just bring me the stuff that it's designed to bring me. It's biologically programmed to make sure everything that's the best for me happens in my life. So if you had a machine like that, and if you really understood that, what would you say you would really, and I mean, it's not an instant fix because we're so conditioned to live in this stressful state of our brain, which I should also say has very limited awareness. All it can see is problems. It's designed to find the problems. If you're standing there in the forest and you hear a lion roar, your brain automatically focuses on nothing but problems, because there might be two lions, there might be a snake in the grass, there might be wild animals somewhere else. Your brain is totally focused on problems. And that's what happens to our life when we're in a stressed state. All we see are problems. We don't see all the great things that are happening in our life. Our brain isn't letting us. Our brain can't let us, because if it missed a problem, that or a danger, that might kill us. So it's not designed to do that. So the most important thing, if you're stressed, and as I say, this isn't a quick fix. It's like losing weight. You've got to change your habits, and you'll get the result if you work on changing your habits. And this is about changing the triggers that are going on in your mind. But if you realize you have this machine, it knows exactly what you want. It's going to give you everything you need to thrive. All you need to do is stop feeling stressed and worried and change your perspective on what your situation is. So what if you lose everything? Does it matter? It didn't matter to me. Your brain will make sure that you don't stay hungry for long. It's going to do it. It's going to make sure. So that's the most important thing. And, so many people I've worked with, when they get this idea, and we don't want to let go of our problems because this part of our brain doesn't want to let go of control. It doesn't want to know that maybe there's a threat to your survival that it's overlooked. So it's difficult to do to start with. But once you start to let go, I've had many people, quite a few people, who contact me long time after they've worked with me, and they say in an email, Liam, you're not going to believe what I'm doing now. And it's always funny because they're doing something completely different to what they thought they were, or to what they thought they should be doing. And often they were the struggling, high achieving, I'm going to reach all my goals and I'm going to fight through and bust through and, all these things. And when they give that up and say, I'm not going to live like that anymore, I'm just going to allow the right things to show up on my life. And if I lose my business, I'm supposed to lose my business. If I make it a wrong decision, what's a wrong decision? It's just a learning experience. So you shift out of that, and maybe you do. And as I say, people contact me and it's always something completely different, but they always say, I never could have dreamt this is what I'd be doing, but I'm so much happier. Why did I struggle with what often happens in relationships? Why did I struggle in that marriage, thinking I had to fix it for me to be happy? And if I just let go and realize, well, if it worked or it didn't work, my brain would make sure that the right thing happened. And if it didn't work, well, go on to somebody else. And that's not being flippant or callous or whatever. It's just the way we're supposed to live. We're not supposed to, it's the law of resistance. If you're struggling in an area It's your brain telling you that you're not supposed to be doing what you're doing. That's logical biology, isn't it? It's your brain saying, I want to make this really difficult for you because it's not what you should be doing. You should be doing something different. And the only thing stopping us from just giving up is we don't trust and know that our brain will bring us what we want. In religious terms, people say, well, you've got to have faith and believe. Most people would say, who are religious, say they have faith and believe, but they don't really. What they don't believe, they just hope. They're still stressed and worried and they pray frantically. But if you really knew that there's part of your brain that's connected to infinite intelligence that's designed biologically to make you thrive, why would you worry about anything? Why would you worry about making a mistake? Why would you hang on to something that was making you miserable, whether it was a business or a relationship? And you don't have to get rid of that business or relationship. You just have to be prepared to get rid of that business or relationship. And when you do, the right things will happen. You'll do the right things.
Kalia Moscow hit something there, and I was in a situation to where I was moving around business, and I had the opportunity to take a back seat in a business that I own, and everybody was like, "What are you going to do now? What's next? What's next? What's next?" And this is this is exactly what I said. I said, I'm going to see what comes to me. I'm done chasing. I'm just going to, I'm going to let the plan evolve, and whatever that plan's supposed to be, I'm just going to follow the plan, and I'm going to quit stressing. I'm going to quit worrying. I'm just going to live life and enjoy it and see how it goes. And, through what you said earlier, I'm like, maybe through what you said about, I never heard this, and if I've dreamed this, I'm like, there's a way that this guy that's in Italy right now, that teaches what I said out loud a couple of years ago, we sent that up, and now we're connected here on this platform. And I can't echo what Liam just said enough. And if you want to, there's so much liberation of just realizing that every day's a new day. You get to breathe, but we're running short here. Tell me, you got a book coming out. Let yourself off the hook. What's a little sneak peek that readers might want to can expect from that?
Well, let yourself off the hook is really all about stopping trying to force things in your life to happen. Using force and struggle, trying to manage your life, because you have this natural creative energy. And when you allow that to operate in your life, in other words, when you let yourself off the hook and say, I'm not going to be responsible for struggling and trying to force things to happen. So when you do that, that's when your creative brain, this different part of your brain, gets to work and starts to take you down the fastest and easiest path to you thriving and being the best that you can be. So my book's all about explaining a little bit of, or some of the science, but also, and from various angles, this thing about using this, shifting your brain state and using this other part of your brain. And remember this creative part of your brain, this isn't your thinking brain. Your thinking brain is another part of your brain. I explain this in a lot more detail in the book. But all of these things, when you think about it, inspiration, creativity, new ideas, getting those aha moments, gut feelings, they never come from you trying to figure stuff out. That's why, you can sit down and try and spend weeks trying to find the answer to a problem. And then all of a sudden you're not thinking about it. You go, I've suddenly got the idea, the answer to that problem. Where did that come from? So my book is about explaining that letting yourself off the hook, allowing this other part of your brain, which is not your thinking brain, it's not your forcing brain, your struggle and pushing and trying hard brain. It's a natural part of your brain, allowing that to do its job to make you thrive.
Man, I'm excited. Any estimated time when that's going to be out, Liam?
Well, I don't make any plans, because one of the keys to you hit it on the head. Goal setting is self-sabotage. You're naturally designed, the most biologically efficient way for you to get to where you're supposed to be is to only know what the next step is. Because if you know more than the next step, you're going to doubt, you're going to question, you're going to try and analyze, you're going to try and research and figure stuff out, and violating the law of economy of energy, conservation of energy. So that's why your brain is not designed to show you anything other than the very next step. So my very next step for the book is I don't really know because I don't make any plans, but could be next month, could be next year, but it'll be there when it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate that. I set myself up for that answer. I knew that answer as soon as it came out. I was like, shut this now. It's going to come when it's supposed to. Tell
But
me,
that's logical, isn't it?
tell me this, and let's speak to that person as we wrap up here. What advice would you give someone who feels they've hit rock bottom and doesn't know how to move forward?
Stop trying and stop worrying about moving forward. You'll move forward in exactly the right way. And, you know, obviously I've hit rock bottom. I explained it before. I know it's not a nice place to be. When you're going through it, it's absolutely awful. But here's the thing. What I learned, or what I discovered from that was the greatest gift that I could possibly have been given in my life, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd still be that stressed entrepreneur trying to push success and trying to figure it all out if that hadn't happened to me, if I hadn't been forced to learn the lesson to do something a different way. So if you're really hitting rock bottom, whatever's going on in your life, instead of saying, like I used to, why is this happening to me? Say to yourself instead, why is this happening for me? What's the gift here? Because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. You don't know if maybe you're going to come along and one day people are going to say to you, you know, whatever your name is, you came out of rock bottom and you really inspired me with your story about how you hit rock bottom and now you're doing great things. And I want to thank you for what you've done for my life. That could be your story. That could be why you're experiencing what you're experiencing right now. You're experiencing all of these stress and problems, maybe because that's the only way you're going to be able to share and help other people when they go through those problems. So everything's a gift. And when you start to realize that, that's when you can really move ahead in your life by just allowing things to take their natural course.
That's powerful advice. Sometimes it's the hardest advice to take, but I'm going to come alongside Liam here, and I'm going to agree. Liam, sometime I'm going to be on your podcast, I hope, and I want to share my journey of what you just spoke. And what I learned, real quick, is sometimes when you're in those moments, is ask yourself what life's trying to teach you and what you're trying to learn, and not be so caught up in that moment. And I got that butterfly effect story that will drive that home, and it's crazy how life comes at you like that. Real quick, tell me how folks can get in touch with you. I'll book all this in our show notes, but how can our listeners connect with you, Liam?
Well, come along to my website, which is Liam Maiden, just my name, LIAMNADEN, liamnaden.com. And I've got a lot of information there about how to break through all of these barriers that are holding us back. And I know what it's like when you're a frustrated entrepreneur, you know, so I've got lots of tools and ideas and methods. I've got a free mini course which is a really powerful technique you can use to get an aha moment about any problem that you're dealing with, how to use this other part of your brain at will, really. So I've got those free resources. And of course, I do coaching and one-on-one coaching as well. And I have courses to help people understand and really change the habit of a lifetime, isn't it? We've been stuck with all of this wrong stuff about life that's totally unnatural. We've made life far harder than it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be a struggle. It's supposed to be an exciting adventure. And all you need to do is learn how to drive this machine differently, the way it's naturally designed. So it's all on my website, liamnaden.com. I'd love to hear from people.
Absolutely. Make sure you take that opportunity to check that out. It's powerful stuff. I can attest that it works. It'll absolutely change your life if you'll follow some of Liam's advice that he gave us today. Thank you. Appreciate you coming on with us and helping us all learn more about what you do and just sharing the power of what you do. I can't thank you enough and appreciate you being on here.
Thanks so much for having me, Jeff. It's been great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Liam Nate on the Second Chance Podcast.